We'll get back to the dance in a bit, but let's go Lakers Bucks last night, where practically none of the stars that you wanted to see were playing. Giannis was there, but no LeBron, no Luka, no Austin Reeves, and no Dame Lillard. There's Giannis in the lane. Bucks a 20-point lead in this game in the second quarter. We're still in the first half here. It's Ryan Rollins throwing it up. It's Giannis throwing it down. Bucks by 16. Late second, I'll tell you who did have a good night, Monica, was Bronny James.
Aye. Look at this. Look what we have here. The young man finding his way as a professional. What did he finish with, Greeny? 17?
Yeah, he had 8 in the first half. Lakers were down 11. Now here's more from Bronny. He would finish with a career high 17 in 30 minutes last night, but it wasn't enough. Giannis, 28 points, 7 boards, 4 assists. Bucks get an easy win. Lakers finishing up a brutal stretch of 6 games in 8 days. Some of them were rescheduled because of the horrible fires that there had been in L.A. So in the Western Conference standings, which are, as you see, just like a razor-thin margin, the Lakers are now 4th. They're 2.5 games out of second. There's a good chance they would either have to play Golden State or the Nuggets in round 1. But Stephen A. yesterday on First Take said there's only one team they should fear.
If you're the Los Angeles Lakers this particular year, there's no one outside of Oklahoma that you should feel concerned about. If LeBron and Doncic is healthy in the lineup together with a Rui Hachimura back and you're fully loaded, I think the only team the Lakers have to worry about is OKC.
All right, Bobby Marks with us. Jay Will looked stunned. You looked nonplussed when he was saying that. Do you agree with that, Monica?
I disagree.
You disagree?
I disagree. I think the Thunder are the only team that doesn't have to be worried about the West. We literally just looked at the standings, Greeny. There's a game, a half a game, a game. It's tight. It's tight. I do not feel confident that the Lakers are going to run away from anybody. I don't feel confident that the Warriors are going to run away from anybody. The only team that I think is rational to have confidence in the West is the Thunder. So I disagree with him.
Bobby, how about you? How do you view it right now in the jam-packed West as far as the teams that have the best chance to be standing at the very end?
Yeah, I think there's Oklahoma City on tier 1, and I think there's everyone else. And I would even go this further with the Lakers here. Greeny, I think there's 7 teams when you look at the Lakers, and you can go all the way to the Clippers in Minnesota, that can see themselves in a Western Conference Finals. I think you can make an argument for all 7 teams. But as we've said before, if the Lakers finish 4th or 5th, they're not getting past Oklahoma City in round 2 here. So I do think it's wide open. I don't think it's Oklahoma City, then the Lakers, and then everyone else. I do think they're bunched up there with Denver and certainly Memphis and Houston in that group.
You actually made the comment in our meeting this morning. Who is it you think, if someone's going to beat the Thunder in the playoffs in the West this year, which team did you tell me you thought had the best chance?
Yeah, this is going to surprise you because they're in 8th place right now. It's Minnesota.
I knew you were going to say that, Bobby.
And I know they've stubbed their toe the last 2 games. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They got to get out of that play-in, that 7-8 range. But here's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at their schedule. They've got the easiest schedule of Western Conference playoff teams here. So if they can get to 6 or even at 7, I think they can get to a Western Conference Finals.
You agree with that?
I'm not going to say biggest, but I completely understand this logic, and I think we are not talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves enough. Last year, the whole thing was, oh, they're young, they don't have experience. And Anthony Edwards and Karl Anthony Towns had the moment at the podium where Ant was like, dang, how much experience do we need?
Right.
They got very valuable experience last year. They have the personnel in terms of the height and the athleticism. They're interesting.
The entire West is going to be jam-packed. We'll keep a close eye on it. Everybody stay where you are. Bobby, stay where you are. Monica, the first day of March Madville hasn't won a tournament game in 8 years. So there are a few things here to react to. I got a squad here that we're going to get into some of this in just a moment in a bigger picture way. But I want to start, Seth, this one is directed not necessarily at you, though I want to hear your perspective on it. But I want to start by making a statement because I had a lot of people who were tweeting at me yesterday. I was very hard on the committee when I said that I felt that Louisville was underseeded. And I had people after they lose yesterday saying, oh, Greeny, what do you have to say now? So I'll tell you what I have to say. I apologize to no one. There's absolutely no bearing. What happens in the tournament has no bearing whatsoever on whether the committee got things right or wrong. It is not their job to decide who's going to win games and who isn't. In the same way that Carolina winning the other night, and even if they win tonight, doesn't justify them getting in. It has nothing whatsoever to do with whether Louisville was seeded correctly or not. Their job is not to guess what's going to happen in the future. It is to judge what has happened in the past. Uncle Seth, I just needed to get that one off my chest before we go any farther. farther?
feel better?
What do you think? No,
Look,
I never
I agree
I
with
never
you. I
really
think if
feel
anyone
much
was
better, but at least I got to say that. Go ahead. Sorry.
If anyone was misseeded, it was Creighton. Creighton got to the finals of the Big East tournament. Creighton's a hard matchup. Creighton's got Kalkbrenner, who's a great defender. Creighton's got guys who can make shots. So look, Louisville had a magical season. There's no doubt about it. But this Louisville team was a bad matchup because they could play Kalkbrenner in the middle lane. He's a one-man zone. What Pat Kelsey did was absolutely incredible. I mean, took over a team that absolutely struggled the last 5 years and brought him to the NCAA tournament the year he had in the ACC. Incredible. Think about this, though, Greeny. If Pat Kelsey doesn't have that year and North Carolina doesn't get into the tournament, the ACC has 2 teams in the NCAA tournament. 2 teams. This is the ACC. This is the standard. This is like the conference that basically created Mike Krzyzewski and Roy Williams and Dean Smith, and historically is one of the greatest basketball conferences ever. They would have gotten 2 teams, except Pat Kelsey did an incredible job, and North Carolina got in down the stretch.
And they've got 2 teams remaining right now, Duke and Carolina, the only 2 that remain. And so the case for a merger, at least in basketball, between the ACC and the Big East feels like it's getting a lot of traction. UConn, 2-time national champion head coach Dan Hurley, whose voice obviously carries a lot of weight, he weighed in.
I mean, I've talked to Coach K about that. He's texted me that. We've talked about that. I've mentioned it to people at the Big East. I mean, that would just make obviously tons of sense to come up with some way to get, and obviously I think the basketball programs in the ACC could really use that. I mean, how cool would it be to find a way to get, Syracuse back in some type of ACC Big East consortium tournament?
So we have a perfect squad in here to talk about this because, Seth, you coached in both the ACC and the Big East during your career. Monica, you played at Georgetown. D. Wood, you played at Boston College. So all of you have sort of a horse in this race. So let's just start off the top of your head before we get into any details. How would you feel? Again, this would be about merging in the non-football sports. This would be the whole conversation here. It's not about putting together the football. We understand that the Big East and the ACC don't match in that regard. But in all the other sports, and I'll remind everyone, Notre Dame participates in the ACC in everything except officially football. What would you feel about the other sports uniting in that regard?
It just makes too much sense, right? Because so much of rivalries is regional. So, like, for me, when I went to Boston College, we were in the Big East. I missed the old Georgetown, Syracuse, Providence, all those teams in the Big East. And then you go down to the Garden for the, for the tournament. Like, that's what's missing. That is what's missing. Now, I know, like, a team like Boston College, we're miscast in the ACC. So I miss those Big East matchups in basketball because, to me, that was like one of the big draws when I was in school at Boston College.
Definitely. So obviously when this comes up, I'm like, first thing is money. But as I thought about it, the basketball in particular does make sense. I mean, practically the ACC is a national conference now anyway with teams that span all the way out in California. But the basketball pedigree of the Big East, and this is where you have to give the Big East credit, they've been able to maintain it despite the shifting landscape of college basketball, or college sports, I should say. I'm into it. It kind of grows on me. Now, I do wonder, Seth Greenberg, which conference would have influence as this changes? Like, the Big East is going to the ACC, thus the tournament would not be at the Garden. Like, I do wonder, like, what would hold if this were to happen.
Seth, what do you think?
Look, I think it's a no-brainer, but here's the thing. I think what should happen, and this is just big picture, I do think they should come together. I do think that football needs to be separated. Chip Kelly said that a long time ago. I've had conversations with the ACC and saying, why wouldn't you investigate this? This is a common sense move. It creates great rivalries, creates events. I mean, college basketball especially. You've got to create events because everyone says, well, the season doesn't start till the NCAA tournament, or the season doesn't start until the Super Bowl is over, or the college football playoffs is over. But when you can have a St. John's and Duke in Madison Square Garden, a North Carolina and UConn at Madison Square Garden, when you can create those normal, old school rivalries and bring them back into the conversation, it's an absolute home run. Now, like, when you talk about the tournaments, scheduling will be an issue. There's no doubt about it. But we need to regionalize basketball. There's no doubt about it. And the non-revenue sports. The idea that the ACC has Stanford and Cal and not Connecticut and someone else in the Big East doesn't make any sense. It's not fair to the student athletes. It's not fair to the good of the enterprise. The other part of this, Greeny, is the ACC has got to make a decision. Do they want to have a basketball teams or programs? They've got to invest in their programs. NIL, coaches, infrastructure, and everything that surrounds it. Because right now, there's no level playing field in the ACC. It's got to Duke, Carolina, and a couple others, and everyone else like BC, they're playing from behind.
Look, the bottom line of it is this, and I think there's no other way to describe it, and this is not a problem that is unique to any of these super conferences. The merging of these conferences has all been about football and money, and everyone else has been collateral damage. That's just the way it is. And so the idea